Good morning to everybody. I think it's time to start this seminar. First of all, I want to provide credits to the Spanish Ministry of Science, Innovation and Universities because they funded the digitalization as key enabler for asset management digest through the Agencia Española de Investigación, Agencia Estatal de Investigación, sorry. And then I want to express my gratitude because in the end, this project is who is providing us with the opportunity to deliver those PhD seminars. Just moving forward into the agenda. So the main topics to be addressed in this seminar will be what generative AI is or is not, the AI research workflow and the benefits from dealing with LLMs with that kind of technologies through it. Then, in a separate way, the literature review is part of the research workflow, but because of its importance, I put it aside. And then how to address in global the qualitative research activities. And then finally, ethics and scholarly integrity as points to be considered in the daily discussion. Okay, then the next point is to consider some constraints. So the agenda is scheduled, or the seminar is scheduled for lasting around 1 hour time. And at that point, the recording process will be stopped. And then I will address the question and answer, if any. Then the audience seminar is intended to be addressed to people carrying out their second year PhD process, most of them STEM people. And then the focus intends to be practical, critical, and ethics about the topic itself, starting from an introduction about what it is. Before starting properly, so some details about me. So basically it says that I'm all guy. Then what is important is where my research is located. I'm in the middle between digital technologies and management, industrial management as a relevant topic. And then, yeah, so after this presentation, I think we can go forward to deal with what the generative AI is. So if we discuss in terms of broad meaning for artificial intelligence, is the field of activity trying to replicate the human capabilities simulated from computers, basically. Then one part of those activities are what is called, generally speaking, machine learning. Machine learning is a set of techniques trying to create predictive or explicative models, not by coding directly the rules, but trying to show the systems, trying to provide systems with examples of data and relationships, and trying to develop algorithms able to extract those relationships in a way that they can, let me say, learn from that evidences. And then one subset of machine learning is named deep learning, basically because the technology, the relevant technology are neural network, but not shallow neural networks, but deep neural networks, so having many layers, inner layers of neurons. And then one small subset of deep learning technology is the generative AI, who aims to basically try to understand the human language. This is the main concept. At the beginning, it was at least. As part of the machine learning problem, the idea is to provide a system with a lot of text, human text, queries and answers, style, raw data, raw text as a whole, making possible for the system to understand how the words are related and how the concepts are created, or the sentences as responsible for concepts are configured. Then the system is able to elaborate probabilistically the potential answer to the query or to the summaries or whatever demand the user has. They name it generative because it uses kind of generator discriminator technology to elaborate the quality of the models themselves. But okay, yeah, this is the key important point here is that there is kind of a reduction of narrowing the concept and going to or reaching the generative AI, where most of the development here is concerned when we talk about text or human expressions are the LLMs. Well, those LLMs can be classified in different families. Let's say one is the classical, more generalist LLMs, what were basically oriented to produce text. So they take text as an input and then elaborate the analysis, and then they provide text. Examples are GPT, the initial versions, Llama from Meta, etc. Then later in time, the multimodal or multidimensional models arrived. Then they were able to mix different sources, different channels, different dimensions, text, but audio as well, or video, or images, etc. So different type of input channels in an integrated way. Then that produced the famous GPT version 4.0, Gemini first versions, Claude 3.5, etc. And then there are also another branch of the LLMs specialized in producing code, making possible for them to write code in Python, in Java, in C++, in many other languages. It doesn't mean that the generalistic model is not able to produce code. For sure they can. Indeed, the multimodal models as well can also produce code. But it's true that those specific models are much more oriented to that activity. So they being specialized in keep in mind that a programming language is nothing else than a language, even more, let's say, structured and regulated than a human language. So for the LLMs, it's much easier to learn the language itself because the rules are clear and established and well known. And then they took benefit from the Stack Overflow and other software discussion forums and tools, making possible for human programmers to discuss which approach will be better than which other and why, the things related to performance, to accuracy, to robustness, etc. So they took that advantage as well. Having a look through time I think is value is worth because shows how fast that technology had evolved. So everything started in 2017 by a seminal paper from Google Labs, famous because the title was "Attention is All You Need," where they were able to show that attention mechanisms trying to put some weights into the words based on the connections from phrases, etc., make full sense, and to put attention to that based on those weights make smarter let's say the discriminator in terms of assessing the quality of the outcome generated. So the example of that was BERT, carried out by Google as well, bidirectional transformers. That happened in 2018. And then that point were basically topic-oriented LLMs, where but they proved the capabilities of the technology. And then, starting at that point, many other companies started to produce LLMs with different approaches. So it's very famous, the OpenAI generative transform, named GPT-3. Then it make a kind of breakthrough in the storyline, because it makes possible to use a chatbot to ask questions like a human at the other end. So moving forward in time, 2021 and 2022 were the time mainly for developing the LLM for coding. So Copilot from GitHub, etc., arrived at that time. And then a little bit later, somehow in parallel, somehow a little bit later, they start to arrive models that were able to react over the text input asking for a picture to elaborate a picture addressing the topics described in the text. There was the famous DALL-E, still available, improved, but still available. And then later on, in 2023, again, OpenAI started to set up, let's say, an integrated view, making possible for the LLM itself to understand, not just to produce an image, but also to understand data from images, understand context from images. So that was kind of pure multimodality in the model. Then in 2024, the largest LLM, generalist LLMs like GPT, Gemini, Claude, and some others became native in multimodality in a way that they were able to move from text into video, from video into text, in audio, mix of inputs in a very broad sense. And then now they are moving into the action thing. So trying to be integrated to react with the environment. This is the last challenge. So this is basically, keep in mind that it was basically 8 years time. And then in 8 years, the technology evolved dramatically from the pure text understanding and generation to generating almost any kind of media, or in some cases, any kind of action or recommendation. So this is a point in time where we need to discuss whether the Turing test still makes sense. As you remember, Turing was a mathematician from the beginning of the 20th century, and he promoted the idea that to distinguish when a human was really a human is when you discuss, you sustain a conversation through a hidden wall. You can't really identify if who is talking to you is a machine or is a person. In that case, that system should be considered like intelligent. Since early 2019, Google demonstrated with a very famous video operating a call center for a hairdressing shop, that people calling, looking for an appointment and for different treatments, etc., was not able to distinguish if they were talking about a human person or a machine. Actually, those kind of systems were banned at that time because of the confusion for the customers, because they were not able to distinguish to whom they were talking with. So now probably we need to re-elaborate the meaning of the Turing test to identify when something is intelligent. Okay, the evolution for that kind of things is because they are connected to software industry very much. Almost any kind of software manufacturer need to prove that they are integrating AI technology Otherwise, they will be, let's say, dismissed very, very easily. So happens here that chatbots and tools are embedded into the existing software applications, sometimes with full sense, sometimes with less sense. So that depends on the specific use case. But apart of that, which is a clear trend, let's say, happens that there are a lot of constellation of startups trying to using the generalistic LLMs to provide specific added value services for producing slides or for creating images or for checking grammar or from many other applications. I collected a list of things that they are connected to that kind of stuff, and we will see some others later. So, but this is also kind of business brand that people use to run. This is important to recognize that normally they don't develop their own LLM themselves, but they use a commercial one through one endpoint, an API service, and they prepare a set of prompts, a set of environment and context to look for what the customer want to know, and they prepare the reports, the slides, or whatever, to produce the added value outcome as expected. Okay, therefore LLMs are not a search engines nor an oracle. So is a component, a system able to handle different human-based input things and trying to answer the questions related. So in that flow from 2017 till nowadays, there are several critical points in time I wanted to highlight for you. The one was in 2022 when the Google Labs produced a paper which was named Chain of Thought Prompting Elicits Reasoning in Large Language Models, where the main idea was try to figure out actually that when they submit a question, a zero-shot question for LLM, just when in the prompt you are do it step by step, just that, answer it step by step or do it step by step. So just asking for doing the things in a clear steps, the system was able to produce better result than when you remove that sentence. So this is what they call chain of thought. The idea of explain or do it step by step. So at that time was in the prompting. So it was in the interaction with the LLM, not inside the LLM itself. Another critical point was in October 2022, carried out by Anthropic, which is a company producing Claude 3.5, for instance, where they thought that it would be very beneficial when the LLM itself was able to ask questions to internet, through APIs, through endpoints, etc., was able to be in relationship with the environment, mainly for solving queries, etc. So the idea was that concept is the basis of what people nowadays call AI agentic technology, right? Well, and the last key aspect was happened in September 2024 when OpenAI moved the previous mentioned chain of thought capabilities into inside the model, inside let's say the server side or the core of the LLM itself. Why? Because then the instruction for the LLM was kind of explore different alternatives step by step, and before answering to the user, assess independently each of the different potential way of handling the question. So if you analyze the thing and you discover 3 different ways of doing, then you will need to check and to estimate the feasibility of the answer, and then to select the most probable one and answer it based on that. And then this is what people call reasoning capability. So as you see, it's just a little bit more than producing text, which was at the very beginning. Now the idea is, okay, based on the question, I can elaborate not just a single answer, potentially several ways of addressing the question. I will assess each of them, and then I will select the most promising, and then that will be the basis for the answer. It's rather for a machine based on Bayes' theorem, it's kind of reasoning approach. For sure, it's obvious that this is not equivalent to intelligence. This is because we need to change the Turing test, because still we are not able to distinguish if we are talking about a human or a system, but it doesn't mean that that system, in case of it is an LLM, is intelligent. It's still following a path, let's say. And then finally, for us in our work, we need to keep in mind all the time that the LLM is not a researcher. We are the researchers, and that's true, it is an assistant. And as such, we need to take benefit from it. Okay, let's move to the next topic, which is AI in the research workflow. So here, let's say the whole picture will be, okay, the workflow for research will be starting with an idea, doing the literature review, then produce, define a method to address the interest topic to be researched over, and then following that methodology, collect data, collect evidences, etc., and then analyze them, and then finally extract some conclusions and writing the report, the paper, the thesis, whatever, and then producing a presentation. Maybe a PowerPoint presentation, maybe a video, maybe an audio, kind or sequence of slides or sequence of cards. So maybe a diagram. So different type of solution. So let's go step by step, keeping in mind that literature review will be, because of its importance, we will be discussed aside. So we will go through ideation, methodology, data analysis, writing, presentation, and then literature review. Okay, then for ideation, the idea is clear, is starting from a very broad topic and then trying to narrow it in a, let's say, more concentrated research, which is worth to be carried out. So as an example, imagine we start from the idea, okay, I want to use AI in healthcare, and then after the discussion, the analysis of the different steps we need to carry out in the ideation process, we come up with what we want to do actually is study the impact of diagnostic AI tools on the patient-physician trust relationship in rural clinics, for instance. Then, well, for sure, I know you are on the second year of your PhD, so you are over the ideation issue, so you are far away from that. But anyhow, I think it's good for context to run from the very beginning. Well, the points here in the ideation steps are normally the first one is narrowing the topic. Then you can play mainly two different games with the LLM. One, ask it to be a devil's advocate or to be a Socratic tutor in a way that, depending on how, or both, depending on the let's say, style you prefer for being constructive or trying to be resistant. Then, by using prompting engineering, you can discuss your thoughts and your ideas against the LLM, checking for, trying to identify the value, limitations, etc. At the end, you will come up with a research question formulation, which is mainly the grounding for your research. So the idea of the research is, okay, I wanted to address one or several research questions which will help us to produce new knowledge, which was not clear at the beginning. For the research question formulation, mainly you can use the LLM to be kind of logic checker. So, well, the idea for this question need to come from you after the discussion, the brainstorming, whatever approach you did. But in the end, it's up to you to formulate them. And then the logic and the construction and connection probably can be, let's say, slightly formulated with the LLM itself. And then, for sure, you can use it as a feasibility checker or a bias checker, trying to discuss either ethical pitfalls or limitations or concerns about the sampling process or the independence of the data. So different type of discussion that is good to have at that point in time because you still didn't spend so much effort you are at the very beginning of the research. So trying to look forward and try to imagine what risks you are being exposed to probably is a good point to come up. So keep in mind that now what will happen here will be the literature review, but that will be explained later on as I told you. So the main consideration here as a recommendation in the ideation step is that LLM is a polyhedric assistant and is not a researcher. So you can't trust directly. You can lazy submit a question and then trust on the answer. It's not that the way of doing. The way of doing is that you need to keep the focus and you need to be consistent when what you are doing. So let's show you an example. This example is using for the ideation the devil's advocate approach. And then I instructed in the prompting, I'm instructing the system to be a kind of devil's advocate and to discuss the idea that being provided by the user. And then I make an instruction to be not polite, to be strict, and don't discuss that much, just single sentences with clear arguments. And then the prompt, so the question from the user will be, I want to investigate benefits of AI application in healthcare because I think it will be relevant to produce several research papers in well-scored journal. What do you think? What do you think LLM as an assistant? Well, you see here, first of all, the answer from the ChatGPT 5.2. If you read through, it's basically no 10 times. Basically, normally everything is wrong question, wrong field, bad approach, that kind of things. Then I did the same prompting to Gemini 3.0 Pro, and it provides with basically same approach. The topic is fulfilled. You can't do in that way because this is not serious. Editors of top-tier journals are aware of potential benefits and blah blah blah. So, but keep in mind that first comment is that Gemini provide less negative points than the GPT did, and although I asked it to be, let's say, strict and not polite, it always try to be beneficial for the user, and then I ask a last question like, would you like me to pivot your research questions to a specific and solved niche? So trying to look for some way out for the user. Keep in mind what happens when I replace the role, so the devil's advocate, for the Socratic tutor. Then now I ask the system to be a counselor and providing help. Then again, ChatGPT. Now the idea is, okay, but be careful. Okay, but So still now the messaging is much more positive and with some safeguards. So take care on this, be careful on that, etc. And the same for Gemini. Again, with the same things. Then they always look for more positive wording. So be careful, because depending on the context you provide to the LLM with, you will get the answer. So you must be very careful in providing either different contexts or whatever to be clear on what type of answer you are getting depending on the question you submitted. Okay, after the ideation, as I told you before, we need to remember that the second step will be the review that will be analyzed later. Then the third one should be the methodology design. So what I did here is just using the LLM, asking for producing kind of method research for one specific research question I have. So I instructed the system to play the role of advanced specialist in research design methodologies and try and be concise and provide a workflow steps for a foolproof design. And then the prompt, which is my need for my research question. I'm interested in investigate the benefits of AI application in multiple sclerosis for gait impairment in a way that digital monitoring without image capture can be a good action. And I want to define a robust plan for a consistent research providing analytical grounding to the current EDSS metric, which is a metric for that disease. And then I ask, finally, can you provide a comprehensive diagram for the methodological design of this research? And then, well, actually, the LLM produced a graph-based drawing, description, which is a machine understandable image description that can be refactorized automatically through software to a graph. Then this is what I did. Actually, I cut out part of the graph because it was very large, but actually the concept was very well focused. So starting on, there is a clinical need. I need to formulate the fundamental concept for the research. I need to make a piloting approach to identify the size of the sample, probabilities, etc., which is this part here. And then finally, I will start to working with looking for the data, preparing the data capture, collecting samples for different type of tests, etc. And then, as I told you, I cut out all the rest of the diagram because of it was very large and it didn't fit into the screen. But the concept is like this one. Then you can visualize and you can discuss and think if everything is included or something is still left, or whatever, and then you can reformulate or you can manage. Keep in mind that all this work is always iterative and interactive, both things. Well, once you get the clear step method defined, then you can go through the data analysis. And then the idea here is, okay, you need to collect the data to either extract data or gather the data, and then try to analyze it. Then there are a set of a kind of pipeline, a kind of workflow. So, but for sure there are some limitations. It's good to be discussed. So to carry out the data analysis, probably you need to know what is done, and then you need to be aware of the already existing knowledge. And then there is a potential useful database, which is named Crossref, probably you know it, which every single journal, when they allocate a new digital object identification number, they make a register into that database, and they record the title of the object, so the paper or the report or whatever, the authors, the journal, the DOI, and many other, the year for sure, the volume number of the series of the inside the volume of the journal itself. So lot of details. And that cross-read database has a public endpoint. You can take benefits from it. It includes indeed the abstract, nothing else. So that is not the whole paper. It's just the textual part of the description of the paper. And then thinking in terms of looking for data, my idea was, okay, may I able to ask the LLM to request get access to the cross-ref, and then I asked ChatGPT 5.2. And then I asked him if it was able to query the Crossref database. And then basically it says, no, I can't, but I can tell you how you can do the job. That's fine. Thank you very much. This is not my interest right now. Then I asked the same thing to Gemini. And Gemini, it answered yes, for sure. I can do it. And then to confirm that, I asked a second question, which was, can you get access to Crossref database and to identify the number of papers published in one journal, Journal of Intelligent Manufacturing, in 2025? And then after a few seconds, or 30 seconds or so, it comes with the answer. Yes, for sure. I collected 171 papers, blah, 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 with some details. And say, okay, that's good. So there are small differences between the implementation of the LLMs based on what kind of endpoints or APIs are able for them to be consumed or not, depending on the provider, right? But anyhow, I wanted to advise you regarding the hallucination, because it's very, very easily found that the system ran into hallucination capabilities or problems. So let me see if I'm able to jump to bring you with a Gemini session, for instance. Yes, probably this one. Let's see. I'm sorry. This was not what I wanted to share. I wanted to share this element here. Yes. Maybe you are able to see it. It's a Gemini interface. And then I can ask, I want to know the number of papers published in of production manufacturing in 2025 from the Ordieres-Meré database. You summarize it in a table. This is the chain of thoughts I told you before. Then, as you see, it is elaborating. Actually, the pipeline for the LLM itself is rather complex, because in some cases it uses some additional space in the virtual machine is running to answer our questions. That is able to deploy there some code, some dynamically generated code, and it runs the code to get answer to the questions. Okay. So actually, I make a mistake in the title, and then it got confused. Then let me put the right. The right journal. Then, as you see, um, it is preparing queries, it is creating the code to submit the queries, to consume the endpoint, and then to elaborate the answer. Now we need to wait a little bit more because it needs to make some kind of cross analysis. So it insists into the figures they provide us with based on the editor and the DBLP library, and it insists in around 501. Okay. Now let's have a look on, for instance, the review articles. Can you place the title, year, and country? Now, as you can see, the answer were basically 6 papers, not 14 as initially announced. So this is the things that we need to care about carefully because the hallucination happens very regularly, or even worse, if you make a request for DOI, you probably 80% of probability that it will be confused. So pay attention to that kind of things because LLMs are powerful, but still they can hallucinate very easily. And then it's up to you to decide and to when to trust or not on those systems. Okay, let's move forward. When then you after doing the analysis of the things you need to do based on what we were discussing right now related to the hallucination, etc. The recommendation is try to carry out kind of triangulations, making possible um, making possible for you to identify when and where the mistakes are happens. So the idea for the triangulation is nothing else that run kind of cross validation of a claim using either different sources, different methods, different data sets, different lengths, whatever. So basically there are mainly 4 types of triangulation: source triangulation, data triangulation, methodological triangulation, and theoretical triangulation. It's up to you to decide which one makes sense for you in every single situation. Then you can see here one simple example related to, for instance, a research question related to the cost effectiveness in policymaker decisions. So you can, for instance, transform that research question in a test, checking one specific point, which is the intervention of nurses are cost effective or whatever. Then you can try to identify uh, to answer yes or no. Then you need to check instead of just relying on the first piece of source you find. Maybe makes sense. Try to carry out in that particular case a source triangulation, looking for different sources of evidence, and then to identify what of them are telling what. And in this case, at the end, you can decide whether or not you can answer yes or not to that claim, and then repeat in other claims, finally, to be able to have enough ground for deciding over the research question. Another activity after data analysis, when you already conceptualize what you want to say, etc., and especially for people like me that we are not native English speakers, then it will be very helpful to use the LLM as let's say, improving expressivity and clarity and avoiding long wording and confused sentences, etc. So to do that, I just prepared an example, a very simple example, which is a prompting telling the system that you are a professional scientist writer assistant. You are requested to review text and to check grammar, but also style and clarity. Do not provide explanation, but provide direct suggestions, sentence by sentence, when issues are found. Can you check the correctness of the following text? And then I provide the text I want to, let's say, to improve. Then the answer is, okay, for sentence 1, there is an issue with clarity and concision, then I suggest this. Then for sentence 2, there is an issue with style and flow. For sentence 3, a minor stylistic refinement, etc. and etc. Okay, then this is an example of how to use the LLM helping to the writing process. Well, next will be let's say, the presentation or elaboration. Also, after reading the main point, the probably last part of the game is to look for accountability outside, so for outreach activities producing some type of elements. Here, this is you can imagine here is not just a problem for the scientists or academics. Here, the providing presentation are much more business related stuff, and then there are a lot of tools, lot of business connected to that kind of creative process. So you can find here solutions like Gamma or Napkin or Tomy or Canvas Magic or Microsoft Copilot or Slides AI or Beautiful AI. So a lot of things apart of the classical generalistic models. Then here is impossible to recommend you any of those. So it's up to you to make your own research and to test some of them and to decide which one serves the best to your goals. But be aware that there are, again, a big ecosystem of tools being acquired and disappearing depending on the evolution of the startups which are behind those products. I don't want to leave that part without presenting you a specific tool named Notebook LM from Google, which probably is worth to be aware of if you are not already. The system is that they ask you to provide some text, audio, video, whatever, and then it will elaborate kind of summary of the concepts behind, making possible to produce either an infography or maybe a kind of set of slides, set of cards for present the concept, or to have kind of talk between two participants in kind of audio clip to discuss about and to make some engaging thing about the topic you were sharing. So the thing is rather powerful and producing a lot of different type of multimodal outcome. Then it will be potentially very interesting for you to help you to reach different audiences or different type of channels for disseminating your ideas. So be aware of that kind of technologies. And then let's come back into the literature review stuff. We thought that we remember that at the beginning in the research workflow, we do have ideation, then literature review. So at the end of the ideation were basically research questions. And then based on the research question, the idea is to understand what was done and what was already discussed in a way that we need to refine the research questions or to adapt them or looking to produce the maximum yield for the effort you will spend in that. Right? So the idea here was to use a well-established literature review protocol, like starting defining the research questions and then going through the PICO framework, answering who are we studying, what we are testing, what comparison we want to establish against what, and what kind of result will be measured and how, etc. So that kind of questions need to be prepared to well define or interest in analyzing what was done. Because if you make softer any of those concepts, probably you will get a much broader description of the topic and the research question you are looking for. And then for sure, the time framework. So am I asking for the last year, for the last 3 years, for the last 5 years, for the last 10 years? How long will be my analysis, my time window analysis? Well, the idea here is to use kind of LLM as an assistant for dealing with the steps that normally need to be addressed. The steps are basically like they presented there in the pipeline. First of all, do the search strategy against which databases, what kind of questions need to be submitted. Then carry out the effective work. So connecting to the databases, submitting the queries, collect the results, etc. This is the access and retrieval. And then screening and selection. After collecting that, you need to compose. Probably you will use different databases, so you need to analyze replications, to apply different criteria for inclusion or exclusions. So there is kind of Prisma methodology, well known for doing that kind of things. Probably you already did or you are doing. And then at the end, you need to make a thematic synthesis to justify that the research question you want to address make full sense and will be able to produce new knowledge was not already know before. Then this is basically the idea. So I use, I think it was ChatGPT for asking if the LLM was able to do a systematic literature review. And then you can see the answer. This is basically yes, but I can go as an LLM into the paid databases to make the search. So this is because I'm marking red the access and retrieval, because this is something that you need to by yourself. So step by step, the search strategy, you can use the LLM to generate queries according to the research questions you think they are the most convenient or the most representative. Be aware that that could change based on the findings you will retrieve. But okay, you can use the LLM to generate the logic queries to be submitted. Then the access and retrieval need to be carried out by yourself, because the step you are using a specific specialized agents that they become able to go through those databases. Otherwise, it needs to be done by you as a manual activity. Then, taking out the data, the screening and selection can be carried out by you again, using the full papers, using the LLMs, and then deciding according to the criteria, written in English, addressing that kind of thing, avoiding that kind of topic, whatever. You are able to justify in your Prisma design what needs to be considered. And then after doing that, then you can make a summary of the papers you have, and then ask the LLM to summarize the findings, the gaps, trends, etc. You are convenient to analyze against your research question. So to what end the existing gaps match with my research question, or how many of them are already covered because was not a gap anymore after 2023 or whatever. Then it's kind of thing that you can, let's say, holding a discussion with the LLM. Okay, so here be aware that there are some limitations in the way you can do this. First of all, the screening and selection, so you must be conscious with the prompting you use to be sure that you do it in a triangular way with data in that particular case, making clear that you are excluding or including the relevant documents and nothing else. Second, and this is a good point, that you are not limited anymore to dealing with 50 or 60 papers for the literature review because of you need to read, to analyze, etc. by hand. Now you can use that kind of technology and then you can expand much more the scope. Then you can handle several hundred of papers without very huge concern. So good things and bad things. Still, the triangulation needs to be carried out for sure. Okay, let's see how to implement the process with examples. The first example I want to discuss with you is one related to using one of the previous stated startups. In that particular case, is named Elicit, and Elicit is able to carry out most of the process in automatic way and producing you kind of list of topics, papers with classifications, etc. I will show you in a few seconds. So I was asking for looking for gaps in the hospital command center effectiveness, which is a very nice topic, I can imagine. But okay, just as a matter of example. For sure, you can use generic LLMs like OpenAI with ScoreGPT or Space or whatever, or Gemini or whatever other, or even you can use Adobe Spaces plus AI as a homemade for, let's say, method triangulation. So you can use different techniques to be sure that you get the same core concepts. So in that particular case, this is the interface of Elicit. And then I was just creating the report I mentioned. I will show you later on. The report is large, but the summary table is the one I present you here. So they produce kind of list of papers where in some cases, because they are open access, the system was able to read through or was not able to read through, and then it is based on the abstract carried out from Crossref. As you see, there are some of them able to read and some of them no. Then they categorize according to the research question, what type of study, what are the focus, and what was the class of command center at the hospital the paper deals with. Okay, I did the same with a generic in that particular case, since we remember that Gemini was able to use Crossref. I asked Gemini to produce a list of papers. It produces 15, but I just cut on the first 5. Otherwise, it was almost impossible to go through all the details. One thing I wanted to show you is that if you visit this DOI, you will realize that it doesn't work. Basically, it exists, but it's a completely different paper. And this is another source for hallucination of LLMs. They are really complicated machines to handle currently DOI with sorry, with the entry of the paper. Why? Well, mainly because of this is text, and they are machines dealing probabilistically with text, and then they got very easily confused. So be aware of that, because it's a well-known issue happening with that kind of techniques. Then finally, you can see here the use of, in that particular case, 15 papers, the same 15 we were discussing before. And then after uploaded into the Acrobat web area, then I start using Spaces. And then I use the AI system to ask questions about to the provided files. Then in that particular case, what Adobe is doing is using a generic LLM with a prompt where the system specifies what is allowed to be done and what is forbidden. In a particular case, the main and strict rule is be related to what is written into the provided documents, nothing else. And then, okay, this is because the answer is always say like based on the provided documents, the following explicit, blah, 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 happen to, and then it works like this. So this is an excellent tool for triangulation. Then advices. So, well, be aware that most of the startups tools are paying services. So, for instance, Elicit grants you once or two trials, and then you need to pay for the service. And in many cases, they use only open access papers as valid source of knowledge. Some of them use Crossref as source for summaries for abstracts, but that's a limitation we need to be aware of. Second limitation is in most of the cases they don't bring you the sources of the papers they were using, so you need to trust on the black box behind the tool itself. And then be careful with the DOIs because hallucination with DOIs is very, very common. Then normally this is not a zero shot query. So normally you need to refine the question. So you need to ask for something, to see what happens, to make some reflective analysis, and then to refine the question. So you need to use in full the stateful approach of the LLM itself. So you can keep the chat and come back into it when time promises to go forward. And then final recommendation is be aware that there is a limit in the amount of sources, space, whatever you are using for your chat. For the ChatGPT and Gemini, limits are between 100 and 150 megabytes of space, and then less than 1,000 files. These are the upper limit for the including all the temporary files they need to produce for when you request that they need to elaborate some code to go through the data and do some analysis. That is always included. Right? So just be aware of that. For sure, if you are a hacker and you want to go over those limitations, you always can do by using AI agentic approach. But that need to be to develop some code, and for sure this is not for this session. So I can bring to you some examples of agentic AI dealing with literature review, doing basically RAG approach inside the LLM. Then that will be the way of avoiding some of the issues we were discussing here. Okay, the next topic we are approaching to the end, and the next topic in the discussion was the qualitative research. So as a whole, not just the literature review or the conceptualization of the research and literature review, etc., but the whole qualitative research normally goes in 5 phases as presented here. So first one is conceptualization and design. So what we discussed earlier related to ideation, literature review, and method design, which is that phase. Then next one should be data collection, not the data collection related to the literature review, which would need to be done already, but this is data collection related to the research question itself. So collecting data from the lab or from the surveys or from the focus group or whatever tool you are using. In those cases, you need to discuss and to define what type of instruments, so whether focus group or either semi-structured survey or interview or pure 100% human-driven interview or mix of tools of several of them, and then the recruitment policy and the saturation point. How many samples I don't need to be consistent and to be sure that there is no bias in the depending on the sample size. Then in the phase 3, transcription plus anonymization plus data organization, and then can need to be done with the help of LLM. And in some cases, there are tools doing that kind of coding in automatic way, like for instance, Atlas.ti or some others. There are several Iramutec and some other tools able to do that job. And then phase 4, which is the data analysis. So after getting the information properly coded, etc., then you can use it for doing the creation of categories or hierarchical categories or separated categories, do the thematic analysis inside each category, discuss through the categories, coherence, and incoherence, etc. So then is the way where you can use again the LLM as a tool to help you in that kind of steps. Not asking it to do it, but solving the specific steps. Remember the idea of step by step, which is really helpful. And then finally, the final phase, which is carry out with the interpretation and the preparation of the report, where we need to create a narrative construction, probably do several triangulations to be sure that we are not losing key aspect in the analysis, and try to be reflective in terms of what the evidence provides with and what can be affirmed based on those evidences. And then for all of those steps, LLM could be very helpful. Obviously, for the step of collecting data from the people, so running the instrument themselves. Then that need to be done by you. And then, for sure, be careful against not trust by default on the data written by the LLM. Keep in mind that this is a probabilistic system specialized in writing text. And then they produce text that could be possible. So it's up to you to triangulate and to be sure that, okay, I trust on this because I know about the field, and then I believe that this is reasonable and the explanation makes sense, etc. And my data also goes in that direction. Okay, let's go through the last point, which was ethic and scholarly integrity. Well, recommendation here, already said before, is don't copy and paste text. So text coming from the LLM, except you advise the journal that you are doing, and you are using AI assistances, then you need to explain carefully how you use the LLM itself. Just doing copy and paste without any additional hint will normally conduct to rejection, because normally editors used to run automatic system, Turnitin and some others, which are able to identify text generated from AI. So be aware of that. Then be aware of that those systems are based, they learn from what is written in history, digitally written, let's say. And for sure, any bias happening based on what it reads for learning will be present in the outcome, in the answer. So for instance, I create an example for you to check, asking Gemini to produce a photorealistic picture of a research in mathematics. And then the outcome is kind of that one, is a man, white, old, right? Which is basically the prototype from ancient history mathematicians. Then, okay, although we are aware or not, some biases are always there based on probably is not asked, is not specifically asked, plot a man, mathematician, over 50s or whatever, no, but still the induction was in that way. For sure, I can refine the request asking for a black woman younger than 30s, as a mathematician as well. That will be possible, but I need to specify. I need to be careful on that. So recommendations or ethical points to be aware of. Be always aware of to be fair, let's say, and non-discriminatory in the use of the AI. Second recommendation, very important, is to be transparent how you use AI and the explainability of what you did. Be aware of the governance policy, because in many cases, information you bring into the LLM to help you to do your work, instead you isolate it in a containerized system. That will be compact if you use GPT or Gemini or Claude or whatever other. Be sure that that information will be part of the data for the next generation of the LLMs. So that will not belong to you anymore. So be aware of the data governance policy, because that matters. And then be aware of the risks of accuracy and trustfulness. So don't trust by default, let's say. Try to use triangulation as a key keystone. And then be aware of that at the end of the day, the decision of what is published, what is done, is from you. It's not, you can't tell, okay, the LLM told me to do in that way. No way. The decision is from you. So you need to be accountable for the decision you do. And then for sure be aware that those systems are extremely expensive and extremely energy consuming. So we are paying now a very low fee, which doesn't cover the total cost of the technology. Probably in the future that will rise up, but just for you to be aware of, just small figures about the cost of generating 750 words of text. It takes, for instance, for ChatGPT or Gemini, either 50 watts per hour or 18 to 25 grams of CO2 based on the average of 140 grams per kilowatt hour. So it's kind of 1 hour time running at 100% intensity of your laptop as an average. And believe me, 750 words is almost nothing for that kind of system. Once you start discussing and doing brainstorming, you will generate much more than several thousands in very short periods of time. So be aware of that. I don't want to tell you that don't use it. They are there to be used, but try to be consistent and efficient in the usage. And then related to integrity, well, first one is be sure that the LLM is not an author. So the author is you. So you are the single responsible of the decision made. And then you can't claim responsibility to third parties like the LLM manufacturer or whatever. Then be transparent and disclosure the usage you did with the LLM. So it's no matter of not using them, it's a matter of using them and declare in which way you use them. And then be careful about accountable about the issues with accuracy, because as I show you some examples, the OAI or deeply analysis of the things reaching goes into hallucination very easily. And then finally, and very importantly, please, if you are playing the role of a reviewer for a journal, don't never ever upload the draft into a commercial LLM, because probably you are infringing the rights of the authorship. That text will be part of the LLM for the future. And then what if the paper is rejected or whatever? So there will be a conflict, and then you can be pushed. So some journals start to ask you as a reviewer, did you use AI LLM models to do the assessment or not? Because in that case, you need to be very conscious, right? So again, be careful, because you don't want to get your draft published before you get it published by yourself. Then, as a final clue, the LLMs are not search engine, are not oracles, but for sure there are tools that make you very much productive or efficient than before. So use it properly. And well, that's all. Thank you very much for attending the presentation. I hope it helps you to do better with your research and to become more productive and efficient. And then now it's time for addressing the questions. I will start the recording now.